back, everybody, to the Retro Blood as we start off a brand new month here in the months of March, talking some killer islands, talking some faraway land that only the real live in. You can get shipwrecked over there. You can find gold. You can find monsters. You can find fog. You can find all kinds of crazy stuff in these killer islands out of the 1980s, because we are doing 1980s Killer Island Month here on the Retro Blood. Up first, if y'all like to travel to the island of California, which is basically is an island that has fog, ghost ships that will haunt you for 100 years, Alison. If you screw with them and you plot to take their gold and make it into a gold chain cross, they will come back and destroy you. If y'all like my boy, Tom Atkins getting some more puss, because that's what he's good at. And if you like foggy towns with lights in them and some DJ who screams the whole time, then this is the review for you, because Retro Blood is starting off this month hot, talking some more John Carpenter films, because we are doing The Fog. J.H. Alison, James Conn, what's happening, Alison? How is your stay at this Antonio Bay resort? Listening to some DJs and getting some Laurie Strode ass. How's that going?
Man, this is fantastic. I was wondering how you were going to sell this as an island movie, because it doesn't really take place on an island, but it is isolated.
The island of California. The isolated island of California.
The island of California. Yeah, I've actually always wanted to visit this lighthouse, but it's a real pain in the ass to get to. Like you can go to, San Francisco, but then you have to rent a car and drive out to it. Like it's in the middle of nowhere. So it might as well be on an island.
It's basically on an island. You know what I mean? Off the bay.
Yes. And I've wanted to, it's off the bay. And I've wanted to do this movie since we started the idea for this podcast. So I'll take this movie any month you can fit it in.
There you go. Well, we had I was thinking we could have done this probably for ghost ships too, because it technically has like a ghost ship in it.
Yeah, we could have done it for ghost
ships. But I was like, we haven't done it in a while, and we haven't talked about a John Carpenter film in a while, because we have mostly done stuff throughout this category in this podcast before. A lot of them in the archives.
Yes.
We've I don't think we've done them all yet, but we're very close.
We're very close. We haven't done Escape from New York, which is not really a horror movie, but we're going to do it anyway.
But it's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a month for that already. So we're going to do that one. That might be the only one. So Escape from New York and this.
What about the China one? That one, the Escape, was it?
Oh, Big Trouble in Little China. We haven't done that. That's a comedy. That's going to be really hard to fit in.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
We can probably find some way to do it. We break the rules all the time.
We might as well do it. You know what I mean? Because we have the rest of this category. Like we have Christine. We have all the Halloweens that he filmed and produced as well too. Yeah. One of the early shows we did was Prince of Darkness, which is a really fun one.
Yeah.
Obviously The Thing, They Live. Those are our classic episodes for those classic movies. So check them out on the archives, everybody. Like I'll probably do a list of all the John Carpenter films we did, because we have done a ton of them on the show before, mostly in podcast form, because this video stuff is all new.
Video stuff's all new, yeah. And I can't remember. Prince of Darkness might still be our old audio too, where we sounded like
it could have been
phone, basically.
Well, yeah. You're right now. I hope nowadays on our video, we did like the reverse. I was sounding like I was on a payphone.
Right.
But now I have enhanced the Retro Blood Studios.
Yep.
As you can all see. And I should be sounding a lot better on here. If I don't choke.
If you don't choke.
Better. It's that fog, brother. It gets into
fog.
the lungs.
It gets in your throat. Your lungs. You can't breathe.
It's like when that fog gets into my lungs, I become a killer pirate who wants my gold.
Yeah, man. I love ghost pirate movies.
Yeah.
Love them. Love ghost pirate movies, zombie pirates, zombie ghost ships. We haven't done ghost ship month yet, right? That's in our plans. We haven't done it yet.
We have a couple ones for that. Yeah, so
we do have
this will be early.
Yeah.
But this one's pretty fun. Like this one, I don't think it gets a whole lot of love from his category. And I wouldn't say this one is my favorite John Carpenter film. I would say.
You would say it wasn't your favorite?
I'm gonna say it's not my favorite of his. I don't mind it, but it's it's not as compelling, I think, as some of his other ones, like The Thing or They Live and stuff like that.
Okay,
but it is, but for what it is though, a Bay Area ghost ship story, very classic. I think it's actually filmed very nicely. Like the filming of it, the cinematography is really cool, especially for the time, 1980.
Yes,
how they did the fog and everything like that, and how they shot it. Especially for an independent film at this time, was pretty amazing. So, but we'll talk all about it, when it comes on there. But everybody, like every Retro Blood, we were talking about what is going on in the world of the pro wrestling and the metal music around the release date. We are back in 1980. Can you believe it?
1980 again. This may be my favorite year for horror movies, personally.
Yeah, I would say that
1980 is good.
You're right about 1980 does have some really good horror movies that we've done a lot on this show, and some that we're still going to be doing. Pro wrestling, little tough, I would say. Not my favorite year. Not my, I don't get all pumped up when I hear 1980s pro wrestling like I would in like 1984 or 5. I think that's, we talked about that before. 4 and 5, 1984 and 5. More so when the pro wrestling is kind of like going toward more as like our style.
Yes.
But when it comes to horror movies, though, this 1980, bro, it's just like a different level. Like everything, it just doesn't seem as commercialized. You know what I mean? Like everybody's still trying to get the best shot. They're still trying to use like the best production that they could do. They're trying to innovate just stuff a lot more. Just the what I like about it, especially with 80s movies in general, is the things between the movie. Like we have the overall plot line, what I'm talking about, but we also have the little things, like the little dialogue between the characters. And I think they do that the best in the 80s compared to nowadays. Because nowadays it's like, I don't know, the dialogue just seems sort of like somber and everything, you know what I mean? Kind of like gritty, you know what I mean? Like, we got these problems going on. Here it's like, I'm drinking a Budweiser while picking up this hitchhiker. I got my windshields blown out, but I'll still bang her. You know what I mean? So it's a little more free, free dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, well, weird that you would use the word gritty, because I feel like 1980 horror movies are gritty in a different way. Like they're definitely not as commercial. They weren't expected to make money because, the big money makers hadn't happened yet. And we talked about this before on the show, but late 70s, mid 70s to like 1983 or 4, horror movies were basically the equivalent of porn.
Yeah.
Like they were made by some of the same people. Wes Craven, for example, was a porn director before he made Last House on the Left. Yeah. And a lot of those guys did that. So they were, and a lot of the same actors that were in porn films were in some of these horror films. So, so horror movies weren't raised to the level that they are now or would be from like 1985 on. It was basically considered equivalent to porn. So, when you went to see The Fog, people, it was not like, let's go see The Fog, the new horror movie. It was something that was like sort of underground at the time.
Yeah. Even though John Carpenter films, I feel like maybe are like a little different because he did have huge success coming from Halloween going into this film.
Well, yes. Yeah. So Halloween is an exception because it was such a huge success.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie I don't think was considered a success in its time, and neither was The Thing, and neither was Prince of Darkness. So I mean, according to my specs, though, he made like on a budget of $1.1 million, it made $21 million, which I mean would be a success by any stretch.
Yeah.
But maybe it just didn't get good reviews at the time. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a success if it made $21 million in 1980.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, John Carpenter, he just kind of like, this is like his golden age right here.
Yeah.
Like 80s, 81, 82, 83. Like he's starting to push him out pretty hardcore. And it's all pretty much due to his success of the original Halloween.
Yeah.
He had a couple of films before then, obviously, but they didn't do as well. But yeah, he's definitely picking up his He's definitely, you know, for a young filmmaker at the time, he definitely has a lot of skills, and it's the way he does his shots and the music that he puts into his films as well too. I mean, the music in this though was badass. Like I love his soundtrack. Oh my god.
It's a great soundtrack. Yes. It's amazing that, he does all of his own soundtracks. Well, not maybe not all of them, but most of them, he does his own soundtrack, especially during this era. And he, does his own shots. He basically does his own cinematography. Yeah. Now, the thing about it though, is I feel like a lot of John Carpenter's success was also due to Debra Hill.
Yes.
Who's, not really talked about a lot sometimes, but she wrote Halloween. She helped write Halloween. She helped write this movie. She was his girlfriend during the Halloween era, but they had broken up by now. I think he was married to Adrienne Barbeau at this time.
No, I think they were still together on this film.
Oh, were they? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was all the way up until like Halloween 3. That's after they broke up around then.
Because I know that she was married. Adrienne Barbeau was married to him when, or was she married to Wes Craven?
I don't remember.
I might be wrong. I might be completely.
I don't know my VH1 love life like you do.
I know. I don't. No. She was married to John Carpenter. So yeah, she. No, her Adrienne Barbeau and John Carpenter got married in 1979.
Okay.
So that was him and Debra Hill must have broke up right after they made Halloween. I
gotcha. But they probably they still work together on producing stuff.
Oh yeah, they continued to work together for several years. They were still working together now. And John Carpenter's son Cody, who he makes music with now, is Adrienne Barbeau's son.
Okay, there you go. It's all in the family, brother.
It's all in the family. I know. I study a lot about Adrienne Barbeau because I love her. I think she's so hot.
There you go. I don't know. Hey, she can come on the Retro Blood. We'll talk about some stuff.
Hell yeah.
But let's get into the history of what was happening in the world of the pro wrestling and the metal music around the release date, February 1st, 1980. So this movie dropped in the theaters. I'll go first a little bit because I think it's going to be kind of long. So, I do want to talk about a little bit of wrestling that was happening around this particular time. It's not as much as what actually happened yesterday in the 2025, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the most notable thing I could see on my list over here, I guess, I think we talked about one of these before already, which was Fujinami winning the WWF Junior Heavyweight Championship before. From wins the NWA International Junior title from Steve Kern. What a barn burner that would have been. All right, and then we have in the Shiverport, Louisiana, at the Civic Center, Ted DiBiase defeated Mike George to win the North American title. So, a couple of title changes and stuff, but I think I want to talk a little bit more about what was going on this year of 2025.
Yeah.
In the world of pro wrestling, because it finally happened.
Finally.
After all these years. Okay, listen, guys. Y'all know, if y'all been listening to me and Alison, we talk about wrestling all the time on here. But I know you have been a long-term fan. I have been a fan of pro wrestling since about 1998. I talked about it on here before, where the first thing I ever saw in pro wrestling was I heard about it from my brother and his friends and stuff. So I was just clicking through the channels. The first thing I've ever saw was Shawn Michaels super kicking Steve Austin to end a Raw just for like 2 seconds.
Yes.
I was like, oh shit, I missed it. I was like, oh shit, I missed the show. I was supposed to watch it. All right. So then I started watching it religiously from there. So I have been watching when John Cena started. I even remember, I don't know if you remember this, Alison, because I was, like I said, I'm a hardcore wrestling fan for so long. I even remember seeing John Cena on this like reality show. Like he was on like this like MTV reality show about pro wrestling because he was part of like this. I don't remember the guy's promotion or name and stuff, but there was like this like reality show about pro wrestling that had nothing to do with WWE at the time. And the guy would show like more. It wasn't like one of those like Tough Enough stuff at all. It was just showing independent wrestlers, training to be a wrestler. And the guy would show them in the ring and stuff and performing and stuff. He even one time criticized this guy about his body fat. He even like weighed his body fat on there. And John Cena was on a couple episodes, and John Cena was like the big, prototype guy. He was like, hey, this is like what we want our superstars to look like. So I remember seeing him on this like reality show. And then a couple of years later, I saw him on, when he first debuted against Kurt Angle. You know what I mean? And the ruthless aggression guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, of course, he sucked for a long time. He was about to get fired. Then he did the rap character, which I was super into, the Thugonomics character. You know what I mean? I saw the whole run of his Thugonomics character. I watched the whole thing. And then right when he basically during that Thugonomics character, he became the ultimate babyface, the Mr. America, guy. We're going to do everything right. He's basically like the modern day Hulk Hogan, you know what I mean? With, no background, bad background like Hulk had, you know what I mean? No politicking, stuff like that. It's just John Cena, the good old American tough guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But obviously over time, if you watch wrestling as long as I did, a lot of the fans didn't really like that kind of babyface character. They resented him a lot. So they would boo him out the building. Boom, boom, boom. You suck. John Cena sucks. They even sang it to a song, his music and everything. And people were like, this guy ever going to turn heel? You know what I mean? Because there's a couple points in his career, you know what I mean? That we thought he was, like 2012, I think he was about to turn heel. He even had new gear, music made, but it just never happened. And the reason it never happened, in my opinion, is because of the Make-A-Wish stuff that he did. Obviously he was such a big character for kids and everything. How can we turn this guy, heel? You know what I mean? Like he's too much of a moneymaker, too much of a big baby face. How are we going to do this? It's different now. He's a Hollywood dude.
No, it's different now. Oh yeah.
He barely shows up. This is the last year. And to say I was shocked, like I wasn't like super shocked because, in the back of my head, I thought that might happen. But if you think about it, it's crazy that now in 2025, after 20 something years of this mega, we will never turn this guy. He's the biggest baby face in the world. I'll do everything right. He's now a heel, brother. You know what I mean?
Right. So I was talking to my friend Ricky last night.
Yeah.
About this because I don't remember Cena ever being really a heel. Ricky says he was a heel like 15 years ago, but I don't really remember that. Ago. But also there was a time when I was really bored with WWE and wasn't watching it. So it could have been during that era, possibly. But, and he's during the Thugonomics era, he was sort of heelish, but not really a heel. But yeah, you're right. They could never turn him because his merch sales were too high and kids loved him, even though everybody else hated him. But kids and women loved John Cena. So they could never turn him for that reason. I was shocked last night when he turned heel, against Cody. I actually thought Cody was going to turn last night.
Yeah.
I thought that, the Cody story had been told the way as far as it could be told, and they needed something new. And I thought Cody was going to join The Rock and turn heel. But a few weeks ago, I remember telling you that I thought Cena might turn heel during the Elimination Chamber match. Yeah. Like I thought that maybe he would turn heel because, he keeps not getting screwed, but he keeps losing these opportunities. And then he was going to, turn heel at the end of that match. But when he didn't, then I was like, well, maybe they're not going to, but they have been hinting at that for a while. Like, when he did his press conference at the end of the Royal Rumble, he's like, I'm going to enter myself in the Elimination Chamber because I deserve this. Yeah. And, and that's not Cena like, what I mean?
Exactly. The hints were there.
Yeah. The hints were definitely there. I mean, they've been thinking about this a long time, but I didn't, I love this long form storytelling, and it's something that's been missing from WWE for probably 20 years or 15 years at least. But the thing I need in wrestling is I need them to give me a reason to watch the next show. And now they're giving me a reason to watch the next show. Do I watch Raw normally? Sometimes. Am I going to watch it tomorrow? You're damn right I will, because I want to see what's going to happen.
See what happens, yeah.
As long as the
follow-up is good.
Yeah, probably nothing will happen until SmackDown, but because all those characters are SmackDown characters. But it's giving me a reason to watch it, and that's all I need. But Cena, I always hated John Cena. I've never liked him. I didn't like Ruthless Aggression Cena. I didn't like Thugonomics Cena. I didn't like any of that shit. The when I started liking Cena was when he started embracing the fact that the fans hated him.
Yeah.
When he started coming out and they
Same
were
here.
singing John Cena sucks over his music, and he was like, telling them to like, sing louder. Like that started liking him. And then when he was on that reality show and he's so goddamn weird all the time, like I kind of like that. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I like Cena now, and I think he's a good actor. He's great as the Peacemaker.
That's true. That's a great show too.
Yeah. So now we're gonna get WrestleMania. We're gonna get Cody versus heel John Cena.
Yes. Should be very interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy that, after all these years, we have that Cena bad guy versus Cody, the good guy. I don't know how the crowd's going to react, though, because you never know. The crowd could always change or whatever. So
you think the crowd will support Cena?
Maybe. They like bad guys. So
they do.
We will see what's happening with that. But I thought the show was pretty good. What do you think about the chamber matches and everything?
I thought both chamber matches were really good. I was sort of surprised to see Bianca Belair win. I thought for sure Liv would win that.
Oh, really?
I did. I mean, maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'm biased. I love Liv. One thing I did realize too, though, is how much of a copy of her name just escaped me. What's the name of the girl that just came back?
Oh, Alexa
Bliss.
Yeah.
How much of a copy of Alexa Bliss that Liv is? Like when they were in the ring, they're pretty similar. When I saw them in the ring together, I was like, oh, this is just a copy of Alexa Bliss, kind of. But I thought the match was good. I thought Alexa was great.
Yeah.
After being off for so long, she looked great. I think she's gained some weight. Like she's larger. I think she looks like a wrestler now, more so than she used to. Did you like the Kevin Owens match? Or what'd you think about
so I like that match a lot. I thought it was pretty good, especially for a big stadium style wrestling. You don't really see that too much in a big stadium. Mostly they say that kind of matches for smaller ones.
Yeah.
I liked the bumps that they took a lot, going through the tables and everything. But I think that match did need blood. And obviously they were holding off the blood for the main event.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. I thought the not having blood in that match kind of hindered it. Because I mean, fuck, like Sami Zayn was getting hit with ring bells and all kinds of shit.
Still didn't bleed.
It still didn't bleed. Same thing with Kevin Owens getting hit with all this shit in the face. It still didn't bleed. Cody, one little gold watch and belt shot, he's gushing blood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I get saving stuff like that for the main event and your big angles. But to be honest with you, I don't think even the main event needed blood. I think Kevin Owens matches needed a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I like that match a lot. I mean, I've seen it a million times before. I thought it was strange, though, that they talked about El Generico versus Kevin Steen on the air. Like, that was, like, really amazing. Like, they didn't say that those were the same guys, but they implied that they were.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I don't know, watching that ladder war between Steen and El Generico, for the people who don't know, Sami Zayn was El Generico in Ring of Honor. Yeah. And they'd had a long, long feud against each other, but there's an amazing ladder war at Final Battle, maybe 2014 or 15. Man, it's probably before that. 14 or 15, maybe. I'd have to look it up. But that's an amazing, amazing match between those two. This match was good. Of course, they were a lot younger. I mean, as we're finding out, you can't do the same shit you used to do when you were younger. As we find out every day. But yeah, I thought the match was pretty good. The women's tag match was, it was what it was.
Yeah.
The men's chamber match I thought was really good. I thought it was great, actually. I thought it was really, really good. And then, then Cody, you knew something big was going to happen because if they were going to finish the show with talking, you knew something big was going to happen.
Yeah, big angle.
I do not like how Cody sacrifices his body way too much, I think. Like that scar on his forehead, that cut on his forehead looked really bad. And because that's not how that's supposed to be done. Like it's, he's not supposed to like cut straight across his fucking forehead like that. But I don't know. Like I mean, I thought the whole show was really good. I think every show they do is really good now. I mean, it's amazing how much better WWE is.
I wouldn't go that far because I wouldn't say all their shows are great. Some of them are really boring. Like some of these SmackDowns. Like
no. I meant the pay-per-views.
Oh, the pay-per-views. Yes.
Yeah, the pay-per-views are okay. The weekly shows are hit or miss.
Well, you can say the same thing for AEW when it comes to pay-per-views. But yes, I do agree with you. Like their major pay-per-views and their angles. WWE's big angles are always really good now, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Now there is holes in it. I could be a super nerd and go through all the holes.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
give us one.
How did The Rock know that John Cena was going to win the Chamber? He basically won it by a fluke. Okay, like how did we even know this was going to happen? All right. So that is
a good point. Like if he lost he lost in the Chamber, and none of this what happens?
Does his soul get retracted? All right. It's like, oh, you lost. I don't want that soul anymore, asshole. All right. I'm gonna give my, actually, okay. Before we move on, because I know we've been talking long about the Chamber and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the funniest part of that angle last night was my boy Travis Scott on there. I thought for sure he was doing a joint. Because he was like lighting something up right in the corner. And like, I didn't know it was sage or shit like that. I just saw him light. It looked like a fucking like crack pipe almost when he was up there. I was like, what's this guy doing? Everybody's like, oh yeah, we're just going to let him smoke crack in front of us right here. But no, it was like some sage thing.
Yes.
I thought it was pretty funny. Actually, I actually liked him being out there. I don't know why. Like, I just thought it was like different. You know what I mean? Just going out there and putting sage all over Cody and shit. I thought it was pretty funny. I liked it. But yeah, I mean, the Chamber match I thought was really fun. You know what I mean? But they make the Chamber out to be like this like devastating career ending shit. You know what I mean? Like, you're in the Chamber. We don't know if your career can last 2 more years. It's taken years off your career. It just looked like a normal match to me now. Like, yes, they might hit the gate here and there, but there's a mat in the ring, which they hit every night. There's mats outside. There used to be like, remember, like the mat on the outside used to be chain link, which I understand why they changed that because people were legitimately
actually getting hurt. Yeah.
Yes. But it's like, and they're going through plexiglass. Like, oh my God, my career is going to be hurt because I go through plexiglass. Like, the Chamber I like the concept and the matches are fun, but it's not as dangerous as they like make it out to be.
No, they're trying to make it like the new Hell in a Cell. Like the Hell in a Cell is a dangerous match, but it's not like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a gimmick match. It's a fun gimmick match, and I'll always watch it, but it's not as it's like this dangerous gimmick match. You know what I mean? Everybody just does big move, submission here, submission there, stuff like that. It's fine, but it's not like, to me, it's not a dangerous match. It's just a gimmick match, but it's a fun one though. I like it.
It's a fun gimmick match. Yes.
Speaking of fun gimmicks, Alison, what are we listening to on our way to the 1980s theater? Going to see some Fog, hoping to see some Michael Myers in the Fog, maybe. What do we think about this time? Because it's like what? The second, once we learned about John Carpenter during Halloween, this is like his second film afterwards. Were we thinking that Michael Myers might make an appearance or no? Laurie Strode's in there, brother.
Laurie Strode's in here. Laurie Strode's in here.
God, does she do nothing in this film?
No, but we'll talk about that when we get there. We're talking about metal right now. She did do something. She did Tom Atkins.
That's all you need, brother.
Tom Atkins is my boy. I love him and everything. Anyway, we're talking about metal right now. We'll talk about Tom Atkins in a minute. So we've briefly talked about this before, and it's going to kind of seem like another episode of What Was Iron Maiden Doing on This Day?
Yes.
But so we've talked about the new wave of British heavy metal before, which was like a resurgence of heavy metal in England. Iron Maiden was probably the most notable band that came out of that, but it was also Diamond Head and Raven and Praying Mantis, a few other bands like that. So we're going to be talking about the Metal for Mothers tour.
Oh, there you go.
Which was Iron Maiden's first big tour. But they were actually, so I'm a little actually confused about this era of Metal for Mothers because it went a long ways. Iron Maiden was only on the first 10 dates. The night of this movie was the first date of the tour. So the way it was supposed to work, or from my understanding of the way it worked, was it was headlined at different times by Motorhead, by Samson, who had Bruce Dickinson in the band before he was in Iron Maiden, and Saxon. But from the research that I found, the first show in Aberdeen, Scotland at the Aberdeen University only had Iron Maiden headlining and Praying Mantis playing underneath them. And Praying Mantis is like they were a new wave of British heavy metal band, but they were way more commercial sounding.
Yeah.
They sounded a little bit like Thin Lizzy if you listen to their first album. So neither band had an album out yet. Iron Maiden's album was going to come out in the spring, and they'd released some singles, but their album was going to come out in the spring, and Praying Mantis's album came out in the next year. It came out in 1981. But they were going to go on tour, joining up with Motorhead to basically, you know, make their way in the world, I guess you could say. So this would be like the first night of this tour. But apparently the first night of the tour only had Iron Maiden and Praying Mantis on it. So there was no Motorhead this night, from what I can tell. But they played at university, and you could tell because they would kind of go to larger venues like Unity Hall in Wakefield, the Lyceum in London.
Maybe the whole Motorhead band was watching The Fog.
Then maybe they just make the show because they went to see The Fog and just didn't make it in time.
Yeah.
Like, fuck this. We got to see this new John Carpenter movie. We love Halloween.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to come see this. We got to go see this. You guys can just play the show. We're going to go see The Fog.
Yes.
But yeah, so basically this was like the beginning of Iron Maiden's career. So supposedly they had played shows, they had played tours, a few tours around England, but when they went on Metal from Others, and then they got picked up a month later to open for Judas Priest. And then that's what took them from being a nobody to being like a well-established metal band. And then the rest is history. They're still playing together today. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because we've mentioned it, but we've never really talked about Metal from Others before.
Yeah.
And this was a perfect opportunity because the first night of the tour was the night this movie came out.
Now, really quick, like Metal from Others, was that just a gimmick name, or it was actually like a charity?
It was a compilation.
Oh, okay.
So you may be familiar with Metal Massacre, which was like a compilation that Metal Blade put out that had the first release from Metallica on it. It had Hit the Lights, and that's how the world first heard about Metallica. But Metal from Others was a compilation that had a bunch of new wave of British heavy metal bands on it, and Iron Maiden was on that, along with Praying Mantis, Sledgehammer, Angel Witch was on it, Samson was on it, a band called Ethel the Frog was on it. But it was the first time we'd ever heard Iron Maiden recorded, which they put Sanctuary on that compilation and then released it as a single. So it was like a tour that was intended to promote these new bands. And then they got these larger bands like Saxon and Motorhead to headline it so people would actually go to them. Because that's how it worked back then, right? So back then, people actually made money when they sold records as opposed to now. Yeah. So you would put your band opening, you would try to get your band opening for a big band. They would go see the big band, and then they see Iron Maiden, like, oh, Iron Maiden's great. Their record's coming out. Let's buy it. Yeah. Whereas now it's the complete opposite. Now you just make your money off touring, as opposed, you don't sell records. You make records to tour, whereas before you toured to be able to make records.
Well, I think you might get some money off streaming, but I'm not
little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that exactly works because I know there's some artists out there that stream a lot of their stuff, and they do get some royalties off of it.
They do get some, but it's very few. Like the numbers that I've heard, for example, like the example that I had was from Desmond Child, who wrote, he helped the Bon Jovi guys write Living on a Prayer.
Yeah.
So the example he was giving that I heard was that in one year, Living on a Prayer was streamed 500 million times. So 500 million times. And he got $30,000.
Interesting.
So that means that most of the bands that we listen to who are getting, several thousand streams in a year are probably making almost nothing. But yeah, you do make some money off streaming, but it's very, 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 very little. But yeah, as opposed to like what selling records was like. But the music business changes,
Yeah, changes all up, brother. Just like the movie business, just like the wrestling business. So.
Exactly.
Speaking of the movie business, let's talk about who booked this shit.
Who booked this shit?
John Carpenter, brother. He's back.
He booked this shit.
He booked it. Yes. He booked it. And with his, like I said, Debra Hill, they wrote the screenplay and created the music. So, this one, obviously, it was filmed. So a couple things about the film I should get into first. It was filmed in the spring of 1979. All right. The Fog was originally scheduled to be released at that Christmas that year. Okay. But the release got delayed until February 1st. And I was watching the a little bit of the making of The Fog. And apparently the reason it got pushed back a lot is because when they showed their final project, everybody hated it. John Carpenter hated it. Everybody hated it because it just wasn't spooky or scary enough. It just didn't work. There was something missing about it.
Yeah. Plus it didn't really have any gore in it. Yeah. Like it wasn't gory. There was no blood in it. So they went back and added some blood because that's what people loved in horror movies at this time.
Yes. Like you said, the film grossed about 21 million. All right. On a budget of, 1.1 million. So obviously it made a lot of good movies. A lot of monies. A lot of good movie monies there, brother. Couple other things about him. Obviously, the production of it. So basically, the idea of how The Fog came to be was actually when Carpenter and Debra Hill were filming the assault on Precinct 13. Okay, because they visited 2 Stonehenge places during the trip, and they witnessed an eerie fog rolling over the landscape from a distance. Mm-hmm. So Carpenter has also stated that he drew additional inspiration from the story from the British film, The Trollerberg Terror. You ever seen the Trollerberg Terror there?
I have not seen it. That's a movie from like the 50s, I think.
Yeah, 1958.
Yeah, I've not seen that. It's a movie that I want to see, but I have not seen it.
Because it dealt with monsters hiding in the clouds, bro. Mm-hmm. Very similar to our pirate fog-like creatures in the fog. Carpenter named characters in the screenplay after people with whom he had collaborated on previous projects. Among them are Dan O'Brien.
O'Bannon, yes.
Okay, which Dan in this movie was the weather guy who was super horny for Stevie.
Dan the weatherman.
Time. Dan O'Brien was a screenwriter who worked with Carpenter on Dark Star. Mm-hmm. Nick Castle, which was the name of our boy Tom Atkins in this movie, who played like the main guy. Kind of. He was obviously, who was the actor who portrayed the original Michael Myers, who is still on a horror movie convention tour to this day.
Oh yeah,
so you can meet Nick Castle a lot around there. And then Tommy Wallace, an editor, sound designer, and art designer who worked on Dark Star and Assault on Precinct 13, as well as several other projects. Mm-hmm. Okay, so. He was also portrayed in this movie as well, too. The babysitter in this film, Mrs. Kobritz, is named after Richard Kobritz, who produced Carpenter's 1978 television film, Someone's Watching Me. You ever seen that?
I have not seen that. I have not seen that. Like I was going to bring that up to you to see if you'd seen it, but no, that's probably the only John Carpenter movie I've never seen. So I need to look that up, actually, and find it.
Yes. So a couple other things. The Fog was part of a 2-picture deal with AVCO Embassy Pictures, along with Escape from New York, which also came out 1 year later, 1981, which I would say Escape from New York is a lot, better storyline in this film. And it is different. Escape from New York is a very interesting film. I can't wait to do it.
Yeah, it's a different kind of movie, but yeah.
It's like a video game, almost in a way. Like an old school video game. Escape from New York is to me. I recently see that. Recently watched it. I watched it when I was on the airplane a couple months back, and it was a fun one to talk about. I think the scenery and everything is kind of simple, but for this huge world. So
yeah, it's interesting that you would say that because Escape from New York I feel like is an influence on video games today.
Yeah,
the way video games are made, because you move in Escape from New York, he's basically moving from one location to another location.
Yeah,
and of course, Snake Plissken was the influence for the hero from Metal Gear Solid.
Exactly, very very similar to Metal Gear Solid. Yes. So a couple things about some of the cast. Obviously our main boy, our retro blood hero over here, Tom Atkins. We love him.
Hell yeah!
All right, we talk about him all the time here on the Retro Blood. I'm actually going to try to actually meet him next weekend.
Oh, wow. That'd be cool.
Yeah. So I will try to get some words with him. You know what I mean?
See if he'll come on the show.
Oh, that'd be fucking awesome. But
ask him what it was like with being in bed naked with Laurie Strode.
I know. Like, bro, this guy, like, I just want to ask him, like, so was it written in all your contracts for John Carpenter's films that you'd be fucking these bitches? Because I mean, like, golly, it's just like every minute, like every film, bro. He's like the John Carpenter playboy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what John Carpenter thinks of a manly man who's getting puss, that is Tom Hanks. Okay, that's
okay? Absolutely. Yeah, he is the manly man who's getting pussy all the time.
I mean, he even got 2 in Halloween 3. He even got 2 women. All right.
Yeah, and he's always
married.
And he's always so much older than whoever he's hooking up with.
I know.
I mean,
even when he looks young, he still looks older.
Yeah, I mean, he's he's like in his 40s here.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that Jamie Lee Curtis was like 22 when this movie was made.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. But yeah, she has a really small part in this.
So this was his first John Carpenter film that he ever did, you know, because he played the, you know, Nick Castle. So it was his first appearance, but then he would also follow it up with the next appearance and the other John Carpenter film. He would also be in Escape from New York.
Yep. And
then he would also be in Halloween Season of the Witch.
Yep.
So besides Escape from New York, because there was no time for our boy Tom to get any pussy in that film, all the other John Carpenter's films, he is a main, you know, obviously he's a main manly man.
He is.
In all these
manly
films. So obviously Jamie Lee Curtis is in this one, which she was on a roll during this era because, you know, right after Halloween, she started getting a lot of these, you know, movies going. And I believe in the same year, we also did a movie of hers called Terror Train, which came out in January of 1980.
Yep.
And then she had this one come out in February. So she is on a roll. She is like on a roll during 1980, the beginning of 1980. She's done a lot of stuff. I didn't think her character in this particular film was like, I don't feel like she was like the main girl for anything at all.
No,
but you know, she was there and she did stuff. Kind of. Okay.
She has a small role in this, but yes.
Yes. So, but obviously we would see her in bigger roles throughout some of the other movies she would do in 1980s. Let's see. So, yes, like I said, the filming took place from April to May 1979 at their Raleigh Studios in Hollywood, California, and on location at several other cities in California, including Point Reeves, Inverse, and Sierra Merida. The original production budget was $90,000, but obviously it went to $1 million.
So it was $900,000 to start with, and then they had to go reshoot it, and then they spent another $100,000 basically to get it to $1 million. But yeah, the Point Reyes Lighthouse, you can still visit that if the weather's good. They close it on bad weather days, but you can drive out there and visit it and go to that lighthouse and go to that beach, which I've always wanted to do, and one day I will. It's a bucket list thing for me.
Yeah, I believe there's you can visit a couple things from this movie on there. Some of them have been redone, but I believe that lighthouse is still kind of like in its original shape.
Yep, it's a historical landmark. So yeah, it looks almost exactly the way it did during this movie. The beach looks almost the same too.
So a couple like trivia notes before we get into the full review. Jazz music was used for Stevie Wayne's, you know, the radio host Stevie.
Yeah.
The one that our weatherman was gushing over the whole film.
So was I. Gushing.
Oh, yeah? You like our girl
I
Stevie?
love Adrienne Barbeau. Yeah, I think she's super hot.
What did she ever beat? What was she in?
She was in Swamp Thing.
Okay, there you go.
A couple years later. This
she
was actually her first movie, though.
Okay.
Or her first big movie.
She was mostly a television star?
Yeah, she, and Broadway and things like that. But she, The Fog was her first movie that I know of that she did. She was on Broadway and she was like a go-go dancer and things like that. She was on a TV show called Maude with B. Arthur, which was for a few years, which was like a spinoff of All in the Family, I believe.
Yes.
But she was on Maude for a while, but this was like the first movie that first big movie that she ever made. And she was a little older getting into it. I mean, she was 35 when this movie was made. So, you know, she was making her first movie at like 35, but yeah.
Interesting. So basically she had to use jazz music because the royalties off jazz music at the time were cheaper than the royalties off rock music. Right. So, you know, the rock music, brother, they want, you know, Iron Maiden, any of these new bands, they want their cut, brother.
They want their cut.
especially if you have Kiss. You know what I mean? You might as well spend $500,000 just to get one Kiss song.
Oh yeah. The budget of this movie would cost more than a Kiss song would cost.
Exactly.
But yeah, I just think it's not strange, but it's funny that it's implied that her radio station is like the only entertainment that this town has.
Yes.
And all it does is play jazz music constantly.
Yeah, jazz, yes. During the witching hour only.
Yes.
From 6 to midnight. You can only, that's when your entertainment for this, for Antonio Bay. All right. So like I said before, after a Ruck cut appearance to be too short for releases and how much it sucked, John Carpenter, he wanted to add more creepy scenes. And among these scenes was actually the beginning with the older guy talking
to John Houseman. Yeah. They added John Houseman. So the movie didn't start with John Houseman. I think that would be fucking weird. Like if you just watched it without him telling the story of the ghost ship. Yeah. Like how would this even make any sense?
Exactly. I thought that was a really creative idea for the time to add that in. And I like that part because it's kind of like, it tells you the story of what's about to happen. Yeah. Basically. Let's see what we got here.
They also added the scene where the reanimated guy attacks Jamie Lee Curtis in the morgue.
Say what now?
They also added another scene they added was the scene where the reanimated corpse attacked Jamie Lee Curtis in the morgue. That wasn't in the original version.
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, they added that stuff in. All right, so a couple of things. Let's see. There's a lot about this movie. So the lead ghost, Blake, was played by special effects artist Rob Button. When Benton asked for the job, John Carpenter asked him to stand up. Button then expected Carpenter to say, and get out. When Carpenter said, so he expected Carpenter to say, get out, but he didn't. So when Carpenter saw that Bolton was a very large man at 6'5", which was needed for the character Blake, he was hired.
Yeah, he is more famous as a special effects artist. He did the special effects for The Thing a couple of years later.
There you go. Yeah, we talked about this before, which I think is an interesting note to bring up here too. John Carpenter is one of those filmmakers where if he likes somebody, he'll keep them for other films. Like he won't even have him audition. He'll just like, hey, I wrote this part for you, or hey, I got this job for you. Let's jump on board.
Yeah, I love that. I love filmmakers who do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of cool to see him in like different situations and different lights and stuff. It's pretty cool. All right, let's see. I like this one. The role of Father Malone was originally offered to Christopher Lee. Oh, could you just imagine? That would have been awesome.
Speaking of Christopher Lee on your poster behind you, your Horror of Dracula poster. But yeah, Christopher Lee. Like I can't even imagine Christopher Lee being in that role. That would have been really, really weird.
He would have made all kinds of facial expressions while he was drinking that liquor.
Yes.
He's like, Bennett, how dare you work past 4 o'clock? All right. So he believed the character to be the father of the community. However, Lee provided to be unavailable. So Hal Holbrook was eventually cast.
Yep. Who's also a great actor. Hal Holbrook is a great actor. He would go on to be in The Ninth Configuration, I believe, and quite a few other movies. He's in a lot of things. He's that guy you see, but you don't really know who he is, but he's a great actor.
Let's see what we got here. So while driving to the lighthouse, Stevie flips off the radio dial, and a broadcast confirms a search for the ship, the Seagrass, is heard. Mm-hmm. The voice mentions a sweep south of Whitley Point and Arkham Reef. Both Arkham Reef and the surname Whitley are referenced to writer H.P. Lovecraft, as he used both repeatedly in his stories. John Carpenter is admittedly a huge fan of Lovecraft. So he added some of the, he always adds like little tidbits in of stuff that he likes.
I did notice the Arkham one because Lovecraft used the term Arkham a lot. He probably created that, which was also taken from him for Arkham Asylum for Batman. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he created the term Arkham. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, so this is a tribute to Lovecraft, which is kind of cool too.
And the last thing we'll end on for the who booked this shit, because there's a lot that's written about this film.
Yeah,
but I like this part. John Carpenter said this movie is basically as homage, mm-hmm. to EC Comics and its bizarre ghost stories. All right.
That's interesting.
Yes. So a theater in Paris that specialized in horror shows from its opening of 1897 until its closing in 1962. Another superstar horror director, George A. Romero, would helm another big horror release that was a homage to EC Comics' Creepshow.
Yes.
That we talked about here before on the show. A year and a half later, which also was a huge hit. So a lot of them took a lot of homage from the EC Comics and its bizarre ghost stories. All right. Mm-hmm. So cool stuff. Like I said, this is like kind of like well, let's talk about this one. So apparently John Carpenter also mentioned during an interview with Fangoria magazine that he was interested in producing an anthology series based on The Fog. Oh, where have we heard that one before?
Yeah, what a similar idea.
This guy just wants to make. I mean, to be honest with you, I think if a John Carpenter came like nowadays, he probably would have got a lot of his TV shows made that he wanted to, basically, because all these anthology stuff that he's looking for are basically how we see like TV shows nowadays with like, American Horror Story or Channel Zero, stuff like that.
He was way ahead of his time. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, you could tell that he definitely wanted to do. What's the word I'm looking for? He was trying to turn it into a monetary thing where he could like passive income, because he tried that with Halloween too, right? He wanted Halloween to be an anthology. So he's like, oh, we'll use the Halloween name, but I won't work on it, but I'll just get money when other people make these Halloween movies that have nothing to do with Michael Myers. And that failed. And then apparently the Fog one failed as well. But yeah, you're right. If this were to happen today, this would have been like, American Horror Story or something like that.
Because, if you look at the landscape, yes, we do have a lot of horror movies that get produced and out there, but there's also a whole lot of horror movie TV shows that get produced, I would say almost equally.
Probably almost equally, to varying degrees of quality, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that it hasn't been made right now. I think they're trying to make a Halloween. I heard that the new production company who bought the Halloween series is going to make a Halloween, TV show.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see.
So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that happens. But I think the anthology series could work with Halloween, just like I think it could work with The Fog too, just spicing stuff up a little bit here. So. Well, about it, so it said, however, the proposed series would at first not have featured any of the characters from Antonio Bay. Instead, the Fog itself would have served as a catalyst for other supernatural stories elsewhere. He also implied that as the series progressed, ties to this 1980 film would become more apparent. So basically, he would make the story about completely new cast characters, still have the Fog in there, and then throughout time, he would slowly connect it to the 1980s film. Which I think would have been great. Yeah, would have been cool. Yeah. However, the series never materialized. But in 2005, there was a remake. Alison, have you ever seen this remake before?
Fuck no, and I will not watch this remake. I refuse.
I don't know anything about it. I have never seen it at all.
No, I know it's PG-13, and that's all I need to know. So. It's a teen. It was remade as a teen horror movie, and there's no way I'm not watching this. I refuse to watch this shit.
Yeah,
this movie does not need to be remade.
No, it doesn't. But it did.
But it was.
So maybe for a Lights Out one day we'll do a.
No, we won't.
Fine.
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, it's either going to be that or Leprechaun in the Hood.
So I'd rather watch Leprechaun in the Hood, to be honest with you.
God, we should have done that this month, March. One day we are going to do Leprechaun in the Hood, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But everybody, let's get into another John Carpenter classic. Let's get into The Fog.
Let's do it.
"100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unnatural came out of the fog. Now it has returned. Years ago, between midnight and 1, something evil came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Who's there?
The fog.
Antonio Bay has a curse on it. We're all cursed.
There's no water getting here, but something awful cold, Dana.
I think I'll go to Vancouver now.
Where's the fog now?
Well, it should be right outside my door now.
Oh, there's something different about this fog. Dan, stay away from the door! Someone listen to me!
Get inside and lock your doors. Close your windows. There's something in the fog. Stay away from the fog. From the creator of Halloween, the ultimate experience in terror and suspense. John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh as Kathy Williams, and Hal Holbrook as Father Malone. The Fog. What you can't see won't hurt you. It will kill you. Between midnight and 1, it will find you.
So we start off the film with a message from Edgar Allan Poe. All right. Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream?
Yeah. Which it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know how that really, I think there could have been better Edgar Allan Poe quotes that would have worked with this movie better.
You know, maybe everything was just a dream within a dream. Maybe the fog-like creature was actually a dream fog-like creature in a dream.
Yes.
Anyway, so then we get an old man telling us some stories. One of the kids is Andy, which we'll find out who he is here in a little bit. And it's all like, it's 11:55. It's almost midnight. But let me tell you a story. I can't really do like the old creepy man fire voice like he could. But I'll try.
No. Well, John Houseman is such, I mean, he's a great actor, and he's in some other movies we're going to do later on, like Ghost Story, but he just has a great voice.
It does have a great voice.
And he just hearing him as a narrator, him telling the story is just amazing. But yeah, no one can do John Houseman, so don't even worry about it.
So he's like, the story is April 21st, like 100 years ago at Spivey Point. There's a fog that rolled in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So nobody could see anything in the fog but a light. All right. And then he was saying basically like a campfire like this crew was trying to follow it. And eventually the ship crashed into the rocks. All the men sunk down. The ship was called Elizabeth Dane. All the crew is left underwater. The fog left, but when it returns, all the dead men will raise up and get their gold back. That's what we'll find out later. So he's basically letting us know what basically is about to happen in the film, in a way. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and then now that we see it's pretty close to the April 24th. I think it's like April 20th right now that we're in. So we see some shots of the town. All right. We hear the radio broadcast lady, Stevie. All right.
Played by Adrienne Barbeau.
We have this guy named Bennett cleaning up this old church, not the new church, but the old church.
Yep.
Okay. He comes in there. He sees Father Malone taking some shots. It's a hard day, man. You know, it's a hard life being an old school priest. You know what I mean? You got to take them shots when you can.
Yeah. You got to. I mean, you know.
So he was thanking Bennett and stuff for cleaning up, and then Bennett's like, he's like, "Hey, do you want one for the road?" And Bennett's like, "Nah, can I get paid?" And he's like, "Oh." He's like, "Well, I wanted you to come in at 4, but can you come in at 6 now? I can't really pay you, brother." Okay. So Bennett leaves, and Father drinks a little bit. He hears like a noise. All this stuff falls down. Radio turns on with jazz music, because that's the only thing we play in this town is jazz music. And it's an old journal that he finds, which we'll figure out what that is here in a little bit. We're back with the DJ. She's playing some more rock music. All right. We see this guy cleaning up a store. Well, at first we see that when the book crashed, the fog, I guess it was kind of rolling in at this time, or the town basically was starting to act up a little crazy. So we have some, phone rings off the hook. We have some horns, car horns ringing off the hook and stuff. And we see this guy cleaning up who drinks orange juice and puts it back. What the fuck?
Weird. I mean, I guess.
What an asshole.
I guess people did that back then. Probably people do that
Take
now.
a little swig and put it back. Whatever.
Shit wasn't sealed, I guess. So,
Golly. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my own two eyes. That offended me. This whole movie. Okay. So a bunch of shit, all the stuff around the areas acting up. They're basically the radio lady saying it's about to be the 100th birthday of Antonio Bay.
Mm-hmm.
The weatherman, which was his name is Dan, who is super horny, with Stevia. He thinks it was going to rain, but we'll see if that does. We have phones ringing off the hooks. Like I said, we have bottles shaking everywhere now. Light turns off on the gas station. Gas is pouring out on its own. It never blew up anything. It was just the gas is on its own.
Yeah, they probably couldn't afford an explosion for this.
Yeah.
But yeah. So basically, the fog's rolling through town, and everything electronics going kind of haywire.
We have this other girl whose name is Sandy, who was also in the original Halloween too.
Yep.
I forgot her name.
In Halloween, she was Annie.
Yeah, Annie. Yeah.
But she's played by Nancy Loomis.
Yes, Nancy Loomis. That's what it was. God, man, where was our boy Donald in this movie?
I don't know. Why didn't they bring that guy back?
He should have been the priest. Could you imagine? Donald Pleasant has the priest.
Donald Pleasant. Yeah,
film?
I mean, like,
holy shit.
That would have been. That would have been great. And surely he was cheaper than Holbrook, right?
They're coming for my gold.
6 times.
Oh my God, 6 times. Can you see him? Do you see him? Look, the pirates are coming. God, bro, that guy was fucking awesome.
Donald Pleasant.
I couldn't believe too. This is off subject, but okay. So this is off subject, but I was doing some research to find some more movies to review.
Okay.
And Tubi has like this huge list of Italian films, brother. I mean, fuck, bro. I could not believe the list that they have of Italian horror films.
Tubi is really good at that. They're really good at curating like things. Like if you want to watch Italian horror films, they have a tab for it. I mean, Tubi is great.
The group.
And great. Tubi's
doing
great.
A lot of them.
Yeah, Tubi, and it's free. I promote the Tubi. Exactly. I love Tubi.
So Donald Pleasant is like in a lot of these Italian films.
He is.
That I saw on there, and I just cannot wait.
We're going to do every one of them.
That's going to be every one of those fucking things. We'll probably do a whole month.
Donald Pleasant's.
Oh my God, that would be fucking awesome.
Donald Pleasant's and Italian horror. Yeah.
So basically, Sandy, she sees a bunch of shit in her house just moving around, even a chair and stuff, and she thinks it's weird, obviously. So now, we have a lot from the radio station.
Yeah.
KEB, California. So Stevie, she plays a lot of she's playing a lot of music.
There's a lot of jazz.
There's a witching hour from 6 to 12. 6 to 12 is apparently the witching hour.
In this movie, 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., I guess is what that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like this line. So Stevie says playing a lot of music. She's like, through this witching hour, can you all turn me on? And of course, who do we see? Tom Atkins, brother.
Oh, Tom Atkins, yes.
He's like, yeah, no problem.
No problem.
God, this guy, he shows up just playboying it out. All right. He's driving. What does he do? He picks up a hitchhiker. Who's the hitchhiker? Laurie Strode.
Jamie Lee Curtis. So he picks up a hot young hitchhiker.
Hot young. Oh, of course. Out of the millions of hitchhikers out there, okay, it's a hot young brunette. You know what I mean?
What
at the time, and of course, who picks her up? The fucking playboy himself.
What I think would have been cool and funny is if they had him like drive past some dude hitchhiking and just stopped and picked her up and then kept going.
Yeah, kept going. Like, fuck that homeless guy. So their dialogue is hilarious here.
It's great.
She's all like, hey, are you creepy? Because, this is my first hitchhiking. And of course, our boy, Tom Atkins, drinking a Budweiser.
While he's driving.
Because
you did that back in 1980.
They don't give a fuck. Antonio Bay, you can drink Budweisers while you're drinking all the time. Nobody cares.
And then you just threw the can out the window.
He threw the can. He had her sip of Budweiser. Because back then the women folk, they drunk Budweiser. They don't care.
No,
not all these fancy drinks nowadays. All right. So they're drinking this Budweiser, right? And she's all like, you're not a weirdo, are you? He's like, yes, I am a weirdo. They start laughing. Ha 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 ha. She's like, okay, good, because the last guy who drove me, he was just so straight and weird. He asked me, by the time he let me go, he wanted to marry me. All right. He's like, and then Tom Hankins is like, well, fucking, I thought you said this is your first riding. He's like, well, no, this is actually my 13th. Because basically, Laurie Strode's character, which her name is going to be Elizabeth in this film, she is trying to get to Vancouver. Okay. So apparently she's been to 13 of these hitchhiking, and she's been okay so far. So they're driving, right? The windows blow out because, everything around the town's all fucked up now, right? And they're blowing out. They don't know, oh, what the hell's going on? So they just go. And of course, the next thing we see of them, they're done having sex. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Who can resist the Atkins man? You know what I mean?
Nobody can.
Who can resist this guy with his jawline, his rugged shirt? Godly, I can't wait to meet this guy. I'm going to be like, bro, I think he might be my hero.
He's definitely my hero.
Because
I bet he looks the same today as he did then.
Because every movie he's in, he mostly plays like a cop, okay, or something like that. Or like, he plays like different roles. But he's always great in all of his roles. And I think he still holds up to the Retro Blood Award of being the best cop we've ever seen in a horror film.
Absolutely.
When it was Night of the
Creeps. Yeah.
Big fan of big fan. All right. So let's see what we got here. So now, after the windows blow out and they look all confused and they drive off. Okay. Now we have Dan, who is a weatherman, who has a crush. I don't know if Dan, I don't think he's ever met Stevia. He just likes her voice because, Stevie.
I bet he has. This is a small town. He's probably met her.
I don't think they met. Because I think the Stevie girl, she was like saying like, I guess she's from Chicago.
Originally, yes.
And she moved to the small town and she's like the like you said, the only entertainment that they have there. So she is she has that sexy DJ voice. It kind of sounds like, like one of those ones where you call up, like you find like the number and you call it up. It's like, hey, brother, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like that deep voice you would hear, like the phone sex voice or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that's her gimmick. So our boy Dan loves it.
He does.
And he's calling her up about the fog bank that's coming in. And of course, she's talking about the fog bank that's coming. So she's telling everybody off the ship and stuff, just watch out for this fog bank. It's 15 miles off the coast. All right. So now we're on the ship. Okay. Which is in there. And they're all listening to the DJ on there. And they're all like, brother, I would like to meet that girl. You hear her voice?
Oh, that's true. You're right. He says, I'd like to meet her. So he does imply that he's never met her before.
Well, no, this is the people off the ship.
Oh, right.
So
I forgot about. Yes, sorry.
The Sally something. We'll find out what it is.
Oh, yeah. And the guy's like, I thought you were married. He's like, I'm not that married.
Yes. Yes. I'm not that married. And then my favorite part, I think it was the Al character.
Yeah.
He's all like, there ain't no fog out there. He's like staring through the window. It's just like, there's going to be fog out there. There ain't no fog out there. I don't see nothing. There ain't no fog. And he's like, oh, wait, there's some fog out there.
Oh, wait, there is fog. Hopefully Al's not the weatherman of the ship.
Oh my God, that was fucking hilarious. I loved it. I just like that whole scene. There ain't no fog out there. Oh shit, there is fog out there. So now Dan asked Stevia to go out with him for the party because there's about to be like 100-year celebration party, but he's like, nah. She's like, nah, I ain't going out with you. He's like, oh, you're a mystery lady. So that's why I think they never met before. I like my notes here. Meanwhile, while this is happening, I didn't know their names at the time. So I put Tom and Lori fuck and they look at magazines. You know what I mean? That's what you do.
Right.
Brother.
That's what you do after you fuck.
So like I said, we find out their name here. Elizabeth is Lori and then Nick is Tom. So there we go. We met their names. Apparently she's from Pasadena. Okay. And she doesn't really know what she wants to do. And he doesn't know what they want to do. So they start flirting. They kiss a little bit. There's a knock at the door. There's a figure that appears in the fog. Nick goes to the door, but the clock breaks. And now it is 1 a.m. So the witching hour is over. So Stevie is out of there. No one's at the door. And then we end that scene. So it's interesting where most of the time when we see the fog, like these creatures come and attack, but they didn't attack here. Maybe the Nick, aka Tom, maybe his manliness was too much for these ghost pirates.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
So we have this kid who runs on a beach. We're going to find out his name is Andy, which is the son of Stevie. He sees some birds. Then he goes out to see this coin that turns into a ship wreckage part that has the name Dane on it. Okay. And he takes it to cool music. That's where I wrote my notes. He goes to the beach, this beach house. That's where his mom is at, Stevia. He gives her some of the wood. Well, the ship wood, not the, okay. He gives her some of the ship wood. Okay. And then he said like, hey, I heard about the shipwood and stuff like this from this ghost story, because he was part of that ghost story at the beginning. And now he wants a Coke and a stomach pounder. Allison, what the hell is a stomach pounder?
I think it's like a giant hamburger, like a cheeseburger, but I'm not really sure.
Damn, okay. Pounding that stomach, brother.
Yep.
Then Stevie, she looks at the wood. So we have Nick and Elizabeth. They go to the shipyard. Okay. And I guess like Nick was like, he knew the people off this ship or something, or he worked with them or something. So he's asking about the ship, how the people never came back home. And they're basically arguing with the ship carrier guy that they probably got drunk out in the sea and they just didn't make it home yet. All right. But Nick wants to go look for them. And eventually, like Nick and Elizabeth, he's like, oh, I thought you were going to be going. But basically, they were just kind of like doing like a one-night stand. Nick and Elizabeth were. But now he's like, hey, do you want to go back to Vancouver now? She's like, no, I'm not going to go back yet. I'll tag along. So she's intrigued by the manliness of Nick. Okay, maybe it's his jaw. You know what I mean? He did have
it's definitely his jawline.
He had a nice jawline at the time.
He does.
Very clean shaven man over here. This Nick was. So let's see. We got. So now we meet Sandy character again, and she's looking over some different art pieces with this character named Williams, and they're basically looking over his statue. They're getting everything ready for the party. Basically, this 100-year celebration party over here. Okay, so now Stevie, she's now driving through the whole island. Okay, and we see her basically going all the way up to her lighthouse. Her lighthouse, she owns the lighthouse through like her family, and that's where she does all her broadcasting at.
Right.
Going there. So now we see Nick and Elizabeth on the boat, and Elizabeth is asking like, hey, is the waves always like this? He's like, no, they're not always like this. Sometimes they're calmer. And he's a little worried about what they're going to be finding when they find the boat. All right. So now they see a boat. Now they see the boat. And there's a bunch of cutscenes during this whole time. But the basic story is Miss Williams, her husband was on that boat. Her husband was out on the boat. And she couldn't sleep all last night because the dog was going crazy, because the whole town was going crazy. And her husband wasn't home too. And she doesn't know how to, she doesn't know what happened to her husband. Okay. And basically Sally said the same thing. Like, I was up all night too, because all these horns and stuff. So like the town was just going crazy. Okay. So Nick goes on the boat. He can't find the crew anywhere, but he notices there's a lot of water in the generator, but there's no water on the deck.
Right. Which is weird, right?
Yes. So then we have Sandy and Williams. They go to the church, the old church with Father Malone. So they're trying to get the church involved in the celebration. Doors open. They talk to Father Malone. They look around a little bit. And then Father Malone scares Williams. And then he says, I got to show you something. I got to show you this book that I found. So then we get like a cutscene, like a bunch of cutscenes where the gist of it is, while Elizabeth and Nick were on the boat, all right, they were on the boat looking for the crew members. Father Malone was telling us the detailed story of what happened 100 years ago. So I'm not going to break down everything because I don't remember everything because he was going a million miles an hour. But the gist of it, all right, was that during this, there was the passengers for the Elizabeth Dane. Make sure I got this right, Alison.
Mm-hmm.
The passengers that I had for Elizabeth Dane, they were going to leave the island for some gold and stuff and go settle somewhere else. But the church and the conspirators didn't want them to leave because it would like ruin the town or something like that, or they didn't have enough money to grow. So they had a plot to sink the ship and take the gold. So I got that. Is like very similar? Am I missing anything?
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
My understanding was that there was gold on the ship, but they weren't they trying to form like a leper colony or something there?
Yeah.
And
colony.
Yeah, because Blake was a leper, and they were trying to form like a leper colony, and they sank the ship and took the gold to keep that from happening, and that's how they formed Antonio Bay.
Yeah.
And it was the descendants of I don't know if this is a spoiler, but it was the descendants of the people who founded the town that are being haunted by the ghosts.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because there's about 6 of them.
Yes.
And we find out that the main conspirator is the father himself.
Yes.
So basically Father Malone's reading this journal that his grandfather wrote to Williams and Sandy. And while this is happening, Tom Hanks is going through the whole ship, or Nick and Elizabeth are going through the whole ship, and they don't see anything, but then they notice like the thermometer is all frozen up. It basically looks like this ship was underwater, but it's not underwater. There's no water on there.
Yeah. So
they try to go find, the crew, and they're basically in like the crew hall, and they're talking about how weird this is. And I do like the line where it was all like, Elizabeth finds a beer, but another Budweiser. All right. And she's all like, I wonder what the crew were doing and stuff. I wonder how it works. And Nick was like, well, you get the spinnies and stuff. She's like, no, I'm not wondering how to drink. I wonder how it works. So they start talking. And then now Nick really tells a story that his dad told him, because his dad used to be a ship guy. All right. A boat guy. All right. And he was going through this fog one day, but he found this coin. Okay. And when he found this coin, it was like this really rare, like French coin or something. Yes. And when he tried to bring the coin back and show him, the coin disappeared. That was like the short gist of his story. All right. And then something scares Elizabeth. Something breaks out and scares her. And she's like, well, maybe I should go to Vancouver now. And then a dead body falls on her.
Yep.
And then now they take that dead body that fell to her. They're taking that dead body to the morgue, while basically the father is saying that this whole town, due to my grandfather's journal, was all built on a lie. This whole town was built on a lie. Mm-hmm. There are a bunch of murderers basically that built this town.
Yes, because they sunk the ship to kill the lepers.
Yes.
And took the gold to start the town. Yes.
Exactly. Even though, I don't know if they took the gold to start the town because they melted it into some sort of cross chain.
Well, that's true. So some of it was made into that cross. Yes.
Okay. Maybe they used some gold for the town. The other one, we gotta get this gold plated.
We gotta have a gold
train.
Cross for the church. Yeah.
So, and then basically Williams, all them are like, oh, well, maybe he was just over exaggerating the story.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't kill a bunch of lepers and stuff.
We didn't kill the lepers and stuff.
No, that didn't happen.
And of course, the ship was, like I said, Elizabeth Bain, and of course, Bain was the sea drift that the Stevie has with her. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we have so now Stevia. I always calling her Stevia the whole time.
Like the artificial sweetener.
Yeah. Hey man, she wasn't artificial sweetener. She was sweetening up our boy Dan.
Oh yeah, she was not artificial.
Come on.
She was totally natural.
Yeah, she was all natural, brother.
All natural sweetener, brother.
So she's making some tea.
Yeah.
All right. So basically she got up to, there's this whole long scene where she gets up to her lighthouse, which is super cool because you can see the whole scenario. You know, you basically just see where she's so isolated in this lighthouse and everything. It's super cool. So she gets up there, she's making some tea, but the driftwood starts to melt or like produce water.
Yeah.
It eventually blows up.
Yeah.
And it makes some weird sound. All right. And she puts out the fire. Everything's okay. We see Nick and Elizabeth, they're leaving with the body. And the doctor, the morgue guy says, hey, this body had water and seaweed in his lungs for like months. But he's like, I saw him like 3 days ago. So I don't get why this body basically looks like it's decomposing and it's been in the water for months, but it hasn't. Okay.
Yeah, one thing that we forgot to mention too is like the wood. So the driftwood says Dane, which was the ship that was sank, that they sank.
Yeah,
but it also changes to where it says 6 must die.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that part. That's good.
So like before it bursts into flames, it says 6 must die. And then the radio, after the water gets in the radio, you hear the voice just coming through it, vowing revenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
The evil voice.
The evil voice. Yes.
Right. Yeah, because it basically was like this radio transmission.
Yes.
And then it just turns into like an evil voice. So they ask if Elizabeth's okay and everything. And during this, there's a lot of cutscenes in this film. I will give them that. Like they would do like they would have Andy. They would have Stevie call, basically Stevie called Andy because Andy was being looked over by the babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
And she was asking him, like, hey, where'd you find that, this driftwood? He's like, well, I told you, Mom, it was by like the water and it was a coin that turned into wood. And she's like, okay, well, don't leave the house at all. Don't leave. And he agrees.
Yes.
All right. And then she goes on the air pretty nervous, you know what I mean? Because she knows some weird shit is happening right now. So she goes on the air and this now is the day that is the 100-year birthday of Antonio Bay. And then, of course, Andy looks onto the ocean like, she told me to stay here, but what if there's more crazy
really
coins out there? He actually does, though. He was actually an 80s kid who listened to his mom. Very first one.
Which is unusual, yeah.
All right, so, and then, the babysitter asked, what's going on? He's like, nothing. He's just looking at the clouds. We have the dog, the doctor's, looking over the dead body. Lungs are filled with liquid. He talks to, basically the guy's name is Simons, I guess. Nick tells him like that he found him dead on the boat.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's no way this guy was dead on the boat. He would look like, with all my calculation, he was, underwater for months, and he's like, they're both pretty much confused. Nick and the doctor, like, they just don't know. He's like, the doctor was even saying like, hey, that victim that we found in a week, she was underwater for like a week. By my calculations, this body that you brought back to me is under the water for a month. But I saw this guy 3 days ago. So they're just so confused. And during all this stuff, the body actually gets up and is about to attack Elizabeth, but he falls down and he has a hook in his hand. So I guess if you get attacked by the sea monsters there, Alison and everybody, you can turn into a sea monster yourself for a second.
Yeah, I guess you get infected by or possessed by whatever, and your corpses are reanimated.
So now they all look worried. They get shots of the whole town at night, which is that's something I do like about John Carpenter's films, where he definitely sets up like the atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like the town.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's really good about setting up the atmosphere. Even if there's not a whole lot of like areas, like, or it's not like some big world atmosphere, he does set up the places that we're going to be. He does set those up really nicely in his shots. So the whole town's getting ready for the party. And, they're at the party. They talk about the ship and all the characters for Antonio Bay. We have the cop is telling Williams that they can't find, her husband, Al, and they look all sad. And of course, Williams, she's all sad too, because, her husband's all missing. They don't know where to find him at.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody sat on there. Nick and Elizabeth hear about the radio and the seagrass and hope they can find it. So now Nick goes off and Nick calls Stevie to tell her that he knows. So basically, the radio, Stevie doesn't really know too much about the seagrass. I think they just got lost in the fog. But she didn't know that Nick and all of them found the seagrass. So now this is when Nick's going to call up Stevie up and tell her about the seagrass, about what he found. Okay.
Right.
And then when he started telling her that stuff, and she was like, well, something was really weird when that night happened, because I got a report that the fog and the ship was east, okay, moving east, but it actually turned west. So how could the fog move itself? Okay.
Yes. So what she's saying basically is that the fog went against the wind or whatever, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's super weird. So now, so she goes back on the air now. All right. And she also said too, that when the fog was moving like that, that's when the town was coming unglued. Okay. So now she's back on the air. She tells her that, she's going to give an update for all the weather, and she's going to check with the weatherman. Of course, the weatherman, Dan, he's all super horny still. She's like, oh yes, you will talk to the weatherman, lady.
Yes. Exactly.
So he drives he's driving with the fog appears where he's at. So now Stevie tells Nick about the driftwood that she saw. And they're going to meet. Like, she's like, hey, come up here to the studio and stuff. So now Dan, the weatherman, comes in. Guy's like, hey man, you didn't have to come in today. He's like, well, I love my job. And I'm not creepy. I'm not creepy at all.
I'm not creepy at all.
I'm not going to call the radio DJ who has that horny voice, you know what I mean? That you can call like 1-800 number on. I'm not creepy like that, but I'm going to call her. Because she's into me, brother. Do you think that Dan would have got like catfish really bad? I bet he would have.
Oh, I bet he would have, yeah. Because he wasn't going to get anywhere with her as long as Tom Atkins was around. Because he was going to get
That's true. That's true. Good thing I don't think Tom Atkins actually met Stevie. If he did, brother, you might as well have had a three-way right there, brother.
I was about to say, you would have had a three-way between him and Laurie Strode.
Exactly.
And Adrian Barbeau. Yeah, that would have been fantastic.
All right. So
different kind of movie though.
A very different movie. All right. So he comes in, love his job, and the guy is saying like, "Hey, we found some fog off the radar." So now Dan calls, Stevie about the fog coming in.
Yeah.
So Nick is on his way to the lighthouse. All right. Dan calls. He's all creepy and shit. Tells her about the fog. Fog bank is moving towards the old rusty road. And then Elizabeth tells the radio, like, anybody who's interested, the fog is moving towards the old rusty road. And that's when you see Elizabeth and Nick. They go towards the road over there.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're trying to follow the fog to see if the fog is the cause of all this weird shit that's happening in this world. Okay. So now basically the fog follows Dan to his weather station. Okay. And then we have this whole long scene of Stevie trying to get Dan out of there. But Dan's like, oh, don't worry about it. There's somebody playing jokes at the door and everything. So he opens up the door and he gets cut. It gets killed while Stevie hears that on the other line, and she's like freaking out now. Okay. So now Williams is given a speech about the 100 old settlers. Stevie is trying to call for help. Sherrod hears the emergency message, but before he can call her, Stevia, the fog kills the phone line. Okay. So Williams talks more about the history of the state. And then the fog rolls into like it looked like the power plant. So all the lights go out of the whole city now. All right. And then all the lights are out in the whole city. Everything's all dark and stuff. But William still says, okay, we could still go visit the statue though. You know what I mean? Gotta get that statue in, brother.
Yeah, you got to visit it.
So Stevie goes after, and she wants to, warn her son about what's going on. So she uses the generator to call out anybody that can go help Andy, because the fog is coming in to her house first, because her house is one of the closest one off the shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Andy thinks all the lights now are neat. Nick and Elizabeth go to the old mill. All right. Now the babysitter sees the fog. Stevie screams on the microphone to get out of there. She tells anybody to go to 88 White Peach Lane. There's a knock at the door, Andy and Elizabeth hear the radio thing. They rush over there. The babysitter tells Andy to go to her room. She opens the door and the fog takes her away.
Yeah, she's telling him to go to the church, right? That's where the church is.
Well, no, she just told him. No. First, Stevia is telling everybody to get to her house to save her son. She don't give a fuck
I
about
see what you're saying. Oh, right. Yeah.
She don't give a fuck about the babysitter. She's like, sure, about her son.
Save my son.
All right. But the babysitter lady, whatever her name, Kirpitz or whatever, she when she opens the door and Andy goes up to his room, she gets kidnapped by the fog pirate ghost. All right. And then he's hiding up in his room. And basically the pirates are about to get him. But Nick saves the day, grabs his ass out of there. All right. And then this is when they all head up to the old church now. Because what they're doing Stevia is she's basically guiding everybody on the radio because the car radios still work. Like the town radios don't work, but the car radios still do. And she's using the generator to still power her studio. So she's telling everybody where to avoid the fog at. All right. So we see like scenes of Sandy and Williams, and we see scenes of Nick and Elizabeth and Andy going through the fog, but they're trying to avoid it. But basically the meeting point where the fog was at was at the old church. All right. So they all get up to the church. All right. Father Merlone, probably drunk off his ass right now.
Yep.
He's like, they killed all 5 of them. Oh God, I would love if Donald Pleasance played this role.
That would have been great.
He'd have been like, they killed all 5 of them. I'm the one left. They killed them 6 times, but I'm still here. Times. All right, but this guy was like, yes, the conspirators and stuff, like they killed them all. But I found out by reading my grandpa's journal that my grandfather was the major one. He was the major conspirator guy. He was the one who took the gold and all this stuff. And at first, like they're all like Nick and all them, like, what the fuck you talking about? It's like, you got to find the journal. Yeah. The journal has all the information that you need in there. Right. So they go with their journal. He tells them all this story. And basically the idea is, check this one out, Alison. I know you're going to like it. The idea is, well, we found where they melted all the gold around. We melted the gold into a huge gold cross chain. Yeah. And what we're going to do is, that Blake guy who's like the major ship guy from Elizabeth Dane and stuff. We're just gonna give it the gold back to him. He'll be all right.
It'll be fine. He'll forgive us all.
What the fuck is a fog pirate gonna do with gold chain?
I know it's way beyond that now. He doesn't need the gold anymore. He just wants his revenge.
Yeah, like he don't give a fuck about what he's gonna buy like a Marriott and put it on Antonio Bay. Yeah,
he invests in the Antonio Bay Marriott. And I would stay there if I would stay at a Marriott that was run by a ghost pirate leper for sure.
So a bunch of we have a bunch of scenes of the fog coming in there. There's a cool scenes of like the ghost hands breaking through like the windows and shit like that. Yeah. I like how like the 2 characters who like get down the cross are like the 2 weakest characters in the film, Williams and Father Malone. This huge pound of gold, they just both carry it down. Yeah. And the big scene is basically when the pirates are attacking. Okay. The pirates, they look kind of cool. I would say they actually look pretty cool. Like they're not like Disney style pirates. Okay. But they have like these glowing red eyes and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like we kind of see them like kind of like very like blacked out, like not too much like detail in them. Yeah. So the father, he presents Blake the cross. Blake touches the cross. Yeah. Okay. And while all this is happening, she's getting attacked by fog monsters as well too. Like her studio got overrun by fog creatures of the night, and she's up on the roof trying to save herself from them. And then when he touches the gold cross of doom, he blows up.
He does. He blows up.
But good thing we have our Mega Man over here, Nick. Tom Atkins himself pulls the father away before he blows up too. And I guess from the Blake and his crew members getting back their gold, they vanish. They're gone.
I guess so. I guess that's how it works.
Bring that gold to. They're gonna refinance their gold. Maybe they'll get a gold pirate ship.
Maybe. Yeah, you give it back the gold, and then everything's good now.
Yeah. So everybody's all like well, I guess that solved everything. Gave the gold back to the pirates and fog in this town. Everything's fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Like they're like, all right, well, hey, Elizabeth, you still want to go? Yeah, we'll go bang out. Okay.
Sure,
They all
let's
leave
do
and
it.
stuff. Then what happens? Father's sitting there and stuff. He's like, oh, okay. He's singing a bunch of prayers and shit. But the fog shows up. And they get his ass. They kill the father. And that's how he ends. The fog. So
Well, also Stevie warns them that the fog could come again,
that's true.
and instructs any ships to keep an eye out for it. Yeah.
Yes. Any ship. Yeah. Keep an eye out for any ships you see out there. If you ever see the fog rolling in, just be careful. I've been through a couple of fogs. I didn't see any ghost priors, but I did see a couple lights.
Yeah, fogs can be scary. I think fogs are cool. Like they're just eerie and creepy.
Yeah.
The idea of fog is inherently scary, I think. Especially like in Northern California where this lighthouse is.
Yeah.
Like the fog can really roll in really, really thick, and like you can't really see anything. So I can see how that could be kind of scary and eerie. So I think fog is cool, which is one of the things I like about this movie. And I think why I like it so much. But I see your point though. Like there's not a ton of story here. You know what I mean? I see why you don't think it's one of his strongest movies, because there's not a ton of story basically. I mean, Adrienne Barbeau, Stevie, playing Stevie, spends pretty much the entire movie in the lighthouse.
Yeah.
Like there's one scene where she's in her home, but everything else, she's pretty much in the lighthouse the entire time. But yeah, there's not a ton of story. I mean, there's, 10 minutes of story or whatever. We could have gone through this whole movie probably in 10 or 15 minutes to tell you everything.
Well, we tell like the baseline story, but
yeah,
I think there was enough like good scenes and good action.
It looks really cool.
Yeah.
But I think it looks really cool, and I love this movie, and I can watch it repeatedly.
Yes.
Like I could watch it again today if I wanted to. I mean, if I decided to. I mean, it's a great film. I think it's just fun to watch.
Yeah. And I would say that the music and everything, the scenery, the calmness to everything, I think it delivered what it was supposed to do. So
it does,
especially for like a like a ghost style, like Bay story.
Sure.
Very fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But everybody, thanks for joining us here on the Retro Blood, where we start off this 1980s Killer Island month.
Killer Island month.
And we're going to keep it rolling, man, because we have a lot of them. This is a 5-week show over here, brother. So, but join us here next week, where we continue this train of Killer Islands, where we're going to be talking all about the Grim Reaper.
Woo. It's going to be a good one.
Never heard of this film before. Supposed to be taking place in the 80s on an island. Don't know too much about it, but it's on the list.
See what happens.
So we'll be doing the Grim Reaper next week. We'll do Island of Blood.
Island of Blood.
Not too much to the imagination over there.
No. Kind of sums it up on the nose there.
Spasms. And American Gothic, I think.
Yeah. Which is a movie I've always wanted to see.
Yeah.
I'll talk about my story behind that, but I remember that being in the VHS store, but I never rented it. So this is going to be a first for me.
Yes. Should be very fun.
I love when we do these movies neither one of us have seen. Look, we know nothing about Grim Reaper, but we're going to watch it and tell you all about it.
I believe you can find most of these off Tubi.
Tubi's
I haven't done my research, but I found these before, but I'm pretty sure you can find most of these off Tubi or Amazon. So, or unless you guys own the Blu-rays or whatever, I always suggest, maybe getting physical media if you can, but some of these ones are kind of hard to do that on because they're not even released on physical media.
Yeah. Physical media forever.
But besides the fog, I actually haven't seen any of these movies, so it's all going to be all new for me. So it should be pretty fun. So, but everybody, thanks for joining us here on the YouTube, on the Apple, on the Spotify, wherever you're listening to us on there. Of course, you can check us out every Sunday, sometimes on Saturday. If I post a show a little early, I do that sometimes. But check us all out. Like us on the Blue Sky, the Instagram, the Facebook, the X. Like us on there, everybody. We do it all on there. Follow us, support us, comment below. We got a lot of good engagement going on from our YouTube channel. So comment, what you guys feel about the fog, or if you have any good memories about the fog, and if we missed something, tell us about that too.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want on here. Which just happens.
Yes.
Sometimes we get a little too, well, we're not drunk right now.
Right.
Sometimes we get a little toasty on this. We do a Tom Atkins, you know what I mean? We drink some beer and we try to discover different things to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But Alison, for all of our podcast listeners, what Iron Maiden song should we leave everybody with? One of the millions ones we have done.
Might as well. Let's leave. We might as well leave with the song that was on the Metal from Mothers compilation, which is Sanctuary.
Sanctuary, brother.
Yeah.
Because there is no sanctuary when you go to the Antonio Bay.
Nope.
If that fog comes rolling in, you're gonna have a bunch of fog pirates looking for their gold chains. If you don't have their gold chains, then they're gonna cut you down.
Yep. Don't mess with pirates.
Don't mess with fog pirates. J.H. Alison, James Kline. See y'all later.
See you guys.